All right. I know that you were a supporter of Mayor Eric Adams. Mayor Eric Adams was very laudatory towards you and your record, your knowledge of government. In fact, he said publicly that he was hoping that you would become a deputy mayor. How seriously did you take that offer from Mayor Adams? Clearly, New York City is in need of leadership now, just as much as New York State is, and we've got a lot of problems. The crime rate has actually gone up over the course of the last 4.5 months, and it had already gone up the previous year and the previous year. Did you seriously consider becoming a deputy mayor?
I was very flattered by the offer from the mayor, but I said to him after thinking about it, talking about it with my family, I can do a lot more to help him as governor of New York State and to help New York City. And the problems in New York City with crime especially are because of the state laws that the governor refuses to change and the state legislature refuses to change. So I can do a lot more to help Eric Adams. I can do a lot more to help the people of New York City as governor of New York State. So I declined his offer politely. I still support him 100%. But I'm gonna try and become the governor of New York State and help turn around New York City and the rest of the state.
I want to talk about crime, and I want to talk about the cost of living. Those are the two issues that you've been focused on. But I have to also get your take on the indictment of the Lieutenant Governor Brian Benjamin. This came as a surprise to exactly no one that occasionally reads the newspaper or knows how to operate Google. I think even Stevie Wonder could see that Brian Benjamin was in legal trouble. In your view, I'm guessing you think this reflects poorly on the leadership and the judgment of Governor Hochul.
Well, it's a complete lack of judgment. It shows her inexperience, quite frankly. I mean, she's been in government for a long time, but she never ran a big operation. She was the lieutenant governor. She served in Congress for less than 2 years. She was a county clerk, and she was a town councilwoman. She was never the chief executive. And listen, you've got to do your 10,000 hours to run a big operation like New York State. It's a $220 billion operation. And New York State, all politics, you got a lot of times you have the chief executives, mayors, governors, president, who've never run anything before. They don't know how to run a large operation. One unique thing that I bring to this job, trained as a lawyer, trained as a CPA, mayor of a small city, county executive of a big county, now in Congress, I know how to make things work in government. I know how to hold people accountable. I know how to set a goal, set vision, and try and build a team to accomplish that goal. It's easy to make speeches and make pronouncements and pass legislation. Getting things done in government requires a skill set. I believe I've got that skill set, and she simply doesn't.
I don't listen. Go ahead.
The lieutenant governor, I mean, like you said, everybody knew this guy had ethical problems surrounding him. Everybody, it was announced the day he was inaugurated. People talked about his scandals. They haunted him for a while. November, it came out that he hadn't filled out his vetting forms properly. He never admitted that he was subpoenaed by the federal government, and she doubled down on him. Then she tripled down on him, even after they said that the grand jury was speaking to him. And it's really just the same old story in New York State. We've lost governors, attorney general, comptroller, Scello, Silver, Bruno. It's terrible.
I don't think anybody, wherever they fall on the political spectrum, would dispute that we've got a corruption problem in New York, and the cost of that corruption is leading to higher taxes, wasteful spending, a whole bunch of other things. As part of that, yesterday you unveiled an ethics reform proposal. Give us the highlights. What are the key aspects of your ethics reform proposal?
Well, why do you need an ethics reform proposal? I mean, we just saw this Buffalo Bills deal that she slipped in to the budget 4 days before the budget was due, no public hearings, the most lucrative taxpayer giveaway in the history of the NFL, and not even a single person has had a public hearing on it. I mean, I said, listen, and, Brian Benjamin and all these other things, on and on. So I laid out 6 points along with my running mate, Diana Reyna. Diana Reyna was a former Brooklyn City Councilwoman, Deputy Borough President to Eric Adams for 4 years. If she's elected, she'll be the first Latina elected statewide in the history of New York State. So we laid out 6 proposals. Number one, anything that's not in the executive's budget, the governor's budget, or the state assembly's budget, or the Senate's budget, that's for $10 million or more, has to go through a public hearing. Pretty straightforward stuff. It was not only the Buffalo Bills. To get a bunch of votes, she put in another $350 million for the Long Island legislators. No line items, no vetting, no discussion. Just, let's put another $350 million in. So you want to do something like that, you have to have a public hearing. Number two, lower the contribution limits to the same as it is at the federal level. $2,900 for the primary, $2,900 only individuals, no corporations. You know what it is in New York State right now? People don't realize. It's almost $70,000 between the primary and the general. And the governor has gotten more $70,000 checks from people doing business with the state, lobbyists, people trying to get a cannabis license, people who have a nursing home and are regulated by the state, developers trying to do a development to get support from the state. That's why she's raised so much money, all from people doing business with the state. Nobody who says, I'm inspired by the governor's vision. I'm inspired by her Buffalo Bills deal. I'm inspired by Brian Benjamin getting indicted. I'm inspired by the fact she hasn't done a thing about addressing crime. No, it's all people doing business with the state. Third, we should do quarterly reports for financial disclosure. The last disclosure was in early January. The next one's not going to be until the end of May. Fourth, we have to make sure that the government of New York is something that is fair and that people can look at. So I go on and on in these proposals, and it's time we wake up to the reality that you shouldn't be able to use taxpayer money to do what are in effect campaign commercials right before the election, which is another one of our proposals.
If people are just tuning in, we're talking with Congressman Tom Suozzi. He's a Democratic candidate for governor in the primary, which is currently scheduled for late June. Who knows what effect the Court of Appeals decision may have on pushing all the primaries back, or perhaps it'll just be the congressional and the state Senate primary that gets pushed back. You've made crime your biggest issue in this campaign. Your commercials focus on crime. Every interview that you do, you look for an opportunity to speak about crime. Polling reflects that this is not just a problem for Republicans, Democrats, Republicans, independents. Everybody views crime in New York State, New York City as a big problem. How do you fix it as governor? And if the legislature remains recalcitrant and doesn't want to do things like tweak the bail reform laws, how can you get around a legislature that may not be in line with what you want to do?
Well, I've laid out a 15-point crime intervention and prevention plan. Intervention, the things we need to do right now to make people feel safe, and prevention, things we need to do for the long term to address the systemic problems in our society, where 75% of the people in jail have a drug, alcohol, or mental health issue. 50% of the people at Rikers Island have a learning disability. These are education issues. These are community issues. I have plans to address those issues. But intervention right now, let's give the mayor of New York City what he wants. Let's give the police commissioner what she wants. Let's give the chief judge what they want. Let's give the district attorneys what they want. Let's give judges the discretion to consider dangerousness of every defendant that comes before them. Every other state in the United States of America, 49 other states, and the federal government all have a dangerousness standard. New York's the only place that doesn't have that. I mean, that's just straightforward common sense. Let's address the problems that have been created from this raise the age legislation, where now gang members have an incentive to give 16 and 17-year-olds firearms, and they say, "Listen, you don't have to worry. You're not going to get busted. Don't worry about it." And we've seen a dramatic increase in young people carrying guns. We have to address the changes in the discovery law that are resulting in a bunch of these cases getting dismissed because the police and the district attorneys can't possibly comply with these onerous timelines. They don't have the resources to do that. So it goes on and on what we need to do with guns by setting up a interstate commission, doing shot spotters, doing gun buyback programs. There's so many things that we need to do to try and address the crime problem that we have in the state of New York.